Welcome to my lesson number 9. During this lesson, I will teach you how to do different strokes on the violin. So we already spent some time practicing how to play and how to place your fingers on string A, D, G, and E. And now it is time to focus on how to use your bow and how to make sure that your sound is very nice, deep, and pleasant. Therefore, this lesson will help us to highlight those important strokes and those important tools that you are gonna need to use to make sure that your sound is really good. First of all, we'll start with learning how to make sure that your bow and the position of your hand is comfortable for you, and that you feel the touch of your bow and that you feel the grip on that is made between a string and bow and the hair. So make sure that you place your bow in the middle of your bow should be placed on string A. I suggested that you mark that middle part of your bow because we're going to be using it, and it's going to be very important that you know where that mark exactly. So the middle of your bow is actually the most comfortable part where you can start practicing how to play bow on violin. And it is very easy because, as I already mentioned before, you have an angle of 90 degrees in your arm. So your arm should have 90 degrees angle. So then you can slowly start opening your arm. Using probably like 4 centimeters of your bow in the middle of your bow. So 2 centimeters up from your mark of the middle bow and 2 centimeters down. So that's when you will see that your elbow is opening. Make sure that the position of your elbow in general is not changing, but just your arm is being opened. Look. So open, close. But I'm not making any other moves. Make sure that your arm is not moving back like you're trying to kick someone from the back. It's a very common mistake, and so many students are starting to play and starting to use their bow with this mistake, but it's very bad. And what it does, look, if I move my arm that way, so I'm losing the spot, I'm losing the grip on the string, and it stops me from making very good and juicy sound. You already know that you need to open nicely your arm instead of making this move, and that's when you're trying to get comfortable in the middle part of your bow, because that's the perfect time when you can actually start feeling your hand and start feeling some pressure made on the string. If you remember, I suggested you practice this bouncing exercise when your point finger is making pressure on the bow and it's kind of like bouncing. So this is exactly the type of movement and the type of pressure you're gonna need to apply when you playing with the bow. When you're using bow to play on strings to make the sound. So make kind of if you will speak in terms of percentage, probably like 20 or 30% of pressure out of 100. That is 100. It's when the stick is touching the hair. So this will be 100. So make approximately 20-30% of that pressure on the bow when you're practicing playing in the middle of your bow. No other movements required. Make sure that you also find the grip, kind of like a starting point when you practicing to use your bow. So if you have the starting point, it will give you juicy sound. And starting point you can reach also by making 30% of pressure using your point finger. Make sure that when you do this move, when you're practicing in the middle of your bow, it's like the weight of your hand should be going inside the string. It should be going on. It should be kind of focused on the bow. You need to be kind of lying and making natural pressure on your bow. That's what will give you very natural and juicy sound. And I remember my teacher told me that imagine that you stick hot knife inside the butter. So that's how you should be feeling, like you're not making any extra pressure. It's just natural weight of your hand with that hot knife that is going inside the butter, because butter gonna melt under the pressure of that hot knife. So you don't need to make any extra the pressure to make sure that you cut that butter. So it's all natural weight. So try to use your natural weight. So you can also lean a little bit towards the violin. When you see a violinist playing and kind of leaning towards the string and leaning towards the violin and turning their ear, that's when they actually making that kind of pressure. So their ear is listening and trying to monitor the quality of sound, making sure that there's no air. That's the way we call it. There's no air, so it's not empty spaces. When you between this interaction, between this the attachment between bow and the string. So this is the first step when you're trying to use your middle part of the bow to play on violin. Also, we're gonna start learning how to use your lower part of the bow. So it's when you start from the fork and you reach the middle part of the bow, and second part of the bow, that's when you start from the middle and go towards the end. So this is second part of the bow. It is advisable that you start practicing in a middle part after you practice in second part of the bow, after you practice in first part of the bow, and when you can do all the three moves perfectly without any hesitations or without struggling to do them. So then you can actually use your full bow. So we'll start from second part of our bow, and your point finger also should be making that 20-30% of pressure, even more, maybe even 40% of pressure, because the second part of your bow is very light in comparison with first part of the bow, where you have a fork that is heavy. Don't forget that it is a black wood and your hand is sitting on top of it. Second part of the bow is actually empty. There's nothing else. There's nothing happening there. Even the stick is very thin. So you need to make sure that you're applying that pressure using your point finger, and when you transferring the weight of your arm towards the bow when you're trying to make sound in this part of the bow. So make sure that your point finger is making that pressure. Yeah, so make sure that you're making that pressure using your point fingers. So let's do it. Nothing is happening too much with your wrist, but it should be moving just slightly. Don't make sure that you don't move it too much, like this. It's not blocked, but it's not moving that much. It's not moving that much. Practice to use the first part of the bow. That's when you start from the fork, and this is more tricky than in comparison with using your middle part of the bow and second part of the bow, because near a fork you need to have your wrist bent like this. It needs to have nice curve, and when you take in your bow to the middle, so then your wrist need to turn into a straight wrist. So straight, curved, straight, curved. If you notice, my bow is kind of turning. So when I'm playing right next to the fork, my bow is kind of turned. You see, I'm not using all hair. I'm using just only, I'm moving my bow on side, and it's kind of using just very small chunk of hair. So, and after I'm slowly turning it and making sure that I'm using the whole hair. Again, when you're curving your wrist, you will see that your bow is changing the angle, and you are not using the whole hair, and it's actually helping you to avoid the scratchy sound that can be made because of the very big weight in this part of the bow. So you have your fork, you have your hand is sitting on top of it, so it might provoke very scratchy sound. Don't be afraid of scratchy sound. It's a sign of resting hand and a natural weight. So over time you're gonna learn how to control it and how to make sure that it's not that ugly scratchy sound. But don't be afraid of it. It's actually a very good sign. So wrist straight, wrist bend, wrist straight, wrist bend. So that's how we should be practicing. Straight, bend, straight, bend. All right. When you can do those exercises in second part of your bow and first part of your bow and in the middle of your bow, so that's the time when you can try to use your whole bow. And to use your whole bow, you need to also start from the position of this curved wrist, so then it's slowly getting straight toward the middle of the bow, and after you're kind of just bending it in the opposite direction. And when you're going back, so it's kind of getting straight, and it's making this nice curve toward the fork. So basically, when you're using the whole bow, you need to change the position of your wrist to make sure that your sound is very uninterrupted and very smooth. So make sure that you're doing all those moves. Play using the whole bow and try to listen to the quality of your sound. So your sound should be very smooth. Make sure that the contact, this little link, this little fraction between the hair of your bow and string is uninterrupted and it's very smooth. This is something what you're gonna need when you're playing songs and you want to have a very kind of like a singing voice of violin. So I wish you the best. I wish you all the best in your practice, and I hope this you will be able to pick up all the tips that I gave you in this lesson, because this lesson is tricky and it's not easy to accomplish all those nice things that I shown to you. And I hope that you will have the strength in you and persistence to listen to the sound and to assure that it has the best quality. If you have any questions, please write me a message, and I will try to guide you. See you on our next lesson. That will be lesson 10 and our last lesson.